Hi there. It's Anna. Sorry, I got some funny message coming up. It's Anna Marika from Eat Well, Live Well, and I am going to start a range of Tuesday lives where I'll go on live and talk about all things endometriosis. I can answer any questions you might have. I can zone in on special topics. I've got a list of topics that I think I could talk about, but I want you also to know that you can ask me to talk about certain things and explain certain things where diet affects your endometriosis. So I thought today I'd kick it off with an explanation of why diet is such an important element of managing your endometriosis, because traditionally endometriosis is seen as a hormonal disease, and true, especially estrogen has a lot to do with what happens when you have your period. So the endometrial tissue that is outside your uterus will respond to the estrogen levels in your body. So when you have your period, the estrogen levels rise, and as a result, the uterus sheds the endometrial tissue and it bleeds. And the same happens to the tissue that is outside your uterus. So the more estrogen you have in your body, the more estrogen you either produce or you have added through foods, which is something I will talk about at some point, the more heavy the shedding and the bleeding and all the results. So definitely estrogen plays a role, but it doesn't explain why you end up with endometrial tissue outside your uterus and why it can stay there. Why is it that your body is not able to recognize those cells and go, you're foreign, you're not supposed to be here, let's clean it up? So if we look at it from a few other systems in the body, then it starts to make a bit more sense, because also some of the symptoms with endometriosis, like bloating, constipation or diarrhea, flatulence, headaches and migraines, they don't necessarily make sense when you just look at it as an estrogen problem. So there must be something else going on. And as a natural health practitioner, we look more at the whole body, so all the systems, and we look at what else could be underpinning that and what else could be playing a role. So two systems for me as a nutritionist that are very interesting are the digestive system and the immune system, and they both play a role in aggravating your endometriosis and in allowing endometrial tissue to find all these other places in your body to settle and to adhere and to grow and to do all the things that you really don't want it to do. So it doesn't. We can't stop the endometrial tissue from getting out of your uterus and finding other places, but there's something there in your body that allows those cells to find a place to adhere and grow. And the digestive system and immune system play a big role, because underlying your endometriosis is chronic systemic inflammation. So inflammation is a way of your immune system to remove any foreign bodies, anything that's dangerous and that needs to go. So a good example is if you have a little cut on your hand, you will see that it starts to get a bit red and swollen, and that's an inflammatory response, which is acute inflammation, which is great because it really does what it needs to do. But it disappears, and then you get a little bit of a scar, and then after a while you won't see it anymore. Now, what happens in your body is that you have chronic inflammation. So there's all the tissues, all the organs are in a state of slight or a bit more than slight inflammation. And that worsens the endometriosis. It allows endometrial tissue to find places to sort of settle in. All the tissues and all the organs are a little bit more vulnerable to those cells adhering to it. So it's it's not as easy, it's not as good at keeping it off. And so that inflammation is making it worse. So why do you have chronic inflammation? Well, number one, your immune system, and there's more and more research that's coming up that shows that women with endometriosis have a less effective immune response. So there's a couple of things that happen for you that shouldn't happen. So first of all, when your immune system kicks in, you produce a lot of certain immune cells called lymphocytes. You produce heaps of them, but they're not effective. So you've got all these lymphocytes going around in your body, but they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We also know that you have auto-antibodies. So those are antibodies that your body produces in response to autoimmune, that are sort of autoimmune cells. So they attack your own tissues. You also have a lot of what we call pro-inflammatory cytokines. So those are the cells that get sort of pulled out when you have a bit of an inflammation or a bit of the potential of an infection, and they create that inflammation. So you have heaps of them. And you also have natural killer cells and macrophages that are supposed to clean up. And you have lots of them, but also not effective. So that combined shows that you have an immune system that is not working exactly the way it should. It's not doing a very effective job in getting rid of any endometrial cells that find themselves in a place where they're not supposed to. So that's one thing. The immune system is not working optimally. The other part that is tricky for you is your digestive system. And if I look at some of the symptoms like bloating, and, flatulence and diarrhea and constipation, clearly there is a digestive issue. Those are digestive symptoms. They're not hormonal symptoms. So what do we know about your digestive system? Well, the first thing we know is that your microbiome, so that's the balance of the bacteria in your gut, is out of whack. So you have more of certain bad bacteria and you have less of the good bacteria. And the problem with that is that the bad bacteria create endotoxins. Bacteria create chemicals all the time, and they do a fantastic job in helping us function. But the bad bacteria, for example, E. coli, they create endotoxins, and those chemicals trigger your already not so effective immune system. So the microbiome, the gut bacteria, add to the drama that is your immune system. The other thing that we know about women with endometriosis is that they have leaky gut. Most of them do. And that means that the gut wall is not able to keep everything out that should be kept out of the bloodstream. So undigested food particles are able to get through the gut wall into the bloodstream. Again, that triggers the immune system because they're not supposed to be there. They're foreign bodies, they're invaders, and your immune system is already not so fantastic. So main response, inflammation. And then the more inflammation you have, the gut wall is also inflamed, the more your leaky gut develops. So it's kind of a vicious cycle there. And what we know about leaky gut is that there are certain things in the diet that really play havoc with it. And we'll talk a lot about going forward about what you can do, for example, to heal your leaky gut, to improve your immune system, what you can do to reduce inflammation, because that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that the inflammation, which is kind of the fire under your endometriosis, if we can reduce that, then we can stop the progression, the growth, the spread of endometrial tissue, because if there's no inflammation, it's much harder for those cells to find places to settle in it, heat and grow. So we can reduce inflammation by eating an anti-inflammatory diet, removing anything that causes you in your digestive system problems, then you can reduce endometriosis symptoms. So this is why looking at your diet is such an important thing. And one of the comments that I hear from almost all my clients is when they start, they go, but I'm already eating a healthy diet. And sure, for a healthy person, what's out there as considered to be a healthy diet is very healthy. But for you, with your leaky gut and your microbiome out of balance and your somewhat out of whack immune system, some foods that are considered healthy for me, for the person next door or anybody, are not healthy for you. They actually make your endometriosis worse. And so that's where diet and getting diet advice is so important. Is you're thinking you're doing the right thing, and yet you're probably eating things that are making your symptoms worse. So every Tuesday going forward, well, trying every Tuesday, I'll do my very best. I will just talk about something around diet and endometriosis, and hopefully give you heaps and heaps of tips on how you can change what you eat, how you can look at your breakfast, lunch, dinner and snacks and start to look at it in different ways and know what to remove, what to eat more of, etc. So you can start to feel a lot better. And one of the things that most of my clients feel almost immediately if they go on an anti-inflammatory diet is they're less tired, they might be less bloated. So some of those symptoms that to me are not directly related to the reproductive system start to be removed, start to reduce, which is a great benefit. And then over time, pain reduces as well, because that's the key element, of course, of endometriosis, this horrible, all-encompassing pain. And that's the main outcome. It's the main goal for most of my clients, is to get rid of, or at least reduce that to bearable levels. So if you're interested in finding out more about how endometriosis and food connect, check out a download that I have, 7 foods you didn't know affected your endometriosis. That's a great way to start. And over the coming weeks and months, I will be talking a lot to you about food and endometriosis, and I hope that you get lots and lots of good tips and ideas as to how you can change what you eat. Because one of the things I love about what you eat is that you decide what you eat. You decide what you put in your mouth. So it's something that you can do yourself. It allows you to take some control over how you manage your endometriosis symptoms. So that's it for today. We've kicked it off, and I'll see you soon. See you next week, hopefully. Have a great day. Bye.